Welcome to a special edition of the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast, where coffee professional Scott Rayo answers your questions. It's yes or no with Scott Rayo.
Thanks, Brioni, and thank you for joining us for another edition of the Orange Cactus Coffee Podcast. It's episode 90, where indeed Scott Rayo joins us again to answer your questions. This episode is a special treat for those of you who are into roasting coffee. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
Yes or no with Scott Rayo.
Mike asks, what's the best approach for scaling a roast profile from sampling to production? Do full batches need to be roasted to fully determine the impact of a desired profile? Or is there a better approach that can allow the roaster to dial in the profile without roasting at production capacity?
Hi, Mike. It's a great question. I think it's simply not possible to transfer roast profiles from sample roasters to larger machines. Most roasters will disagree with me on this, but I believe that their standards for roast profile transfer and success are probably a lot lower than they should be. Small machines like sample roasters have different thermodynamics than larger machines. They have much less thermal mass and much more conductive heat transfer during roasting. Throw in different air temperatures, which affect bean probe readings and potentially different bean probes, and you can see that the bean data from small and large machines simply can't be translated. The best one can do with a small machine is get a sense of how much a given coffee is a gas hog and how likely its ROR is to crash at first crack. If you want to dial in a profile, I think the best strategy is to keep a log of every one of your green coffee's moisture contents, densities, and bean sizes. Then, when you get a new coffee, find the old coffee that had the most similar physical characteristics as the new coffee, and use the most successful settings from that older coffee as your initial settings for the new coffee. In other words, begin with the settings that work best for the best analog you've roasted in the past. No matter what you do, the first batch of a new coffee is going to be a little bit of an adventure. But if you track the physical characteristics of older coffees and use them to guide you in roasting new coffees, I think you'll have a lot of success.
Yes or no with Scott Rayo.
Look, I gotta be honest with you. I have no idea what Scott is talking about transferring roast profiles. Great question, thank you, but
Yeah, little to big,
it doesn't work that way.
light to heavy.
Principles stay the same, but no.
It just doesn't scale. It's not like a baking recipe, right?
Right, we just double the flour, double the sugar, double the butter.
We need twice as much, so
Do you double the heat?
it's double the heat, double the drum speed, double the airflow. No, essentially he says, no, it doesn't work. And this is something that I've thought about for a long time, thinking, okay, well, you being new to roasting, being new to figuring out how you take samples that you've roasted and you find, okay, this one's better. And I kind of did this with that bean, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Now I need to replicate that on a full batch. What do? Do I just go about it the same way I did it on the small batch? Is it that simple? And according to Scott, it's not. His opinion, and he says it varies, and some will disagree with him. You can't really account for roasting a full batch. And there's a few, I think, things that he mentioned that were good for me, was that you can take some of the principles. How does that bean respond to heat, being one of them? What is the moisture density or the moisture content? What is the density of the bean? And if you realize that even the sample took a lot of heat or very little heat or responded quickly to heat changes, fan changes, whatever it might be, you can expect a similar response from a larger batch. So those principles hold true, but you can't just scale up the profile.
It's not going to be just the same.
It's just not going to work the same way.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because then you have less free mass or volume, air volume in your roaster if you have more beans in there taking up space. I wonder if it would work if you could scale everything equally and exponentially. Like exactly, like the amount of free space in the small roaster was the same in the big roaster.
Like do a little more math?
Yes. Like every variable, everything is scaled. Like, you know, those little cars, like this is a 1/32nd size race car or whatever it is. Everything's to scale. I wonder if then you would have a greater probability of replicating the profile.
Huh?
Right? So I don't know, but I hope that information was valuable to some of you roasters out there that are trying to dial in on a smaller, sample roaster, or just using your roaster with less. And then when you go to put it into production and roast full batches, it takes a little more. You basically got to dial it in again, is what I took from that.
Got to dial it in.
You got to do full batches, taste them, and say, okay, we're on track or we're not on track.
Yeah.
And he said a good starting point, if you've had that bean in the past, start there.
Or a similar type bean, right?
Yeah. Maybe, similar density.
Similar profile.
Exactly.